The episode starts with a man reading some scriptures. As he read, a town is shown that is almost the opposite of Jackson. Buildings covered in snow and abandoned, no people on the streets, just cold and empty. Then David, who is reading this Bible verse to a group that looks desperate and haggard, hears a girl crying. He stops reading and goes over to her. Inside the old steakhouse they're meeting in hangs a banner that reads, "When we are in need, he shall provide." David says he has read this passage too many times, and the girl says she does not remember what comes next. The girl nods that she knows what that means, and David shows the girl compassion. As he walks away, the girl asks, "When can we bury him?" David looks around and meets eyes with James, and then replies that the ground is too cold, and they can bury this man in the spring. After the meeting, David meets people outside, promising they will get through this. As the other people leave, David asks James how much they have left of venison, elk, and rabbit. James says if they ration it, they may have a week, 2 at best. But 2 men saw some deer a few miles away, yet it could be nothing. David tells him that he sensed doubt, and James says they are just scared. James laughs it off and says he still believes, but it's been a rough 6 months. David then says he needs to know James is with him, and when he agrees, David tells James to go get his gun as they are going for hunting. Then the scene shifts to Ellie and Joel now, and he is still recovering. She wets his lips with water and puts some food on his chest, making it clear they are running out of it. She whispers that she will be right back and takes the gun to go hunting. Ellie finds a rabbit but trips in the snow trying to get to it. Then she hears a deer and uses the skills that Joel taught her to shoot it. It runs off injured and she goes after it, but James and David find it first. The 2 men are about to take the deer when Ellie comes out of the woods and points the rifle at them. David asks to make a trade for half the deer because he has a large hungry group with women and children. Ellie says she does too, but then asks if they have medicine for infections. David sends James to the settlement to get penicillin and syringe. As they wait, David asks if Ellie's gun is her dad's gun and if he's the one who's sick. Ellie is unresponsive, and David says it's a 4-mile round trip to the settlement, so they'll be waiting for a while. David offers to start a fire at a nearby building, and Ellie reluctantly agrees, telling him to bring the deer. The 2 sit by the fire, and David attempts to make conversation. David assures her that he means no harm, and that there's room in his group if she wants. Ellie asks if David is the leader of this hunger club, and David says it was not his choice, that they chose to follow him. Ellie asks if this is a cult, and David jokingly says she's got him there. As David and Ellie talk and he explains that he used to be a teacher but is a preacher now, he found God after the apocalypse. But then his attitude seems to change. Ellie jokes with him while David tells him that after the Pittsburgh quarantine zone fell in 2017, he left with a few others, and that's how their community began. David says they would settle somewhere, but then raiders would come, and they would have to move again, and they'd find new people along the way until they ended up here. Ellie says their luck had to run out sooner or later, but David does not believe in luck. David says everything happened for a reason. When Ellie seems to not believe him, David says he can prove it to her. David says they did not expect the winter to be this rough, so David sent 4 people to a nearby town to scavenge, and only 3 come back. The one who did not come back, Alec, was a father who had a daughter Ellie's age. This man was murdered by a crazy man who was traveling with a little girl. Ellie, realizing that the man David is talking about is the one that stabbed Joel and the one that Joel killed, straightens up as David smiles, saying, "Everything happens for a reason." It turns out James has returned and is behind Ellie, aiming his gun at her. David then tells James to lower gun, revealing that he is behind Ellie with a gun pulled on her. David tells James to give her the medicine. Uncertain, James does as he is told, and David says he knows she is not from a big group and he can protect her. But Ellie is not hearing this, taking the medicine and running away without the deer. As she goes, James questions if David is going to let her get away. Ellie runs back to Joel and uses the medicine on Joel's wound. After this success, she lays down next to Joel with her arm around him. Back to David's group, and in the kitchen, the supplies are low. A man brings out some suspicious-looking meat, and when the cooks ask what it is, the man replies that it's venison. They put the meat into a pot, and later this concoction being ladled out to the people in the steakhouse. As they eat their meager portions, David and James return with the deer, and David stands in front of his group beaming at this find. But the group does not respond, and he quickly realizes James told them about the girl. David admits that yes, they found a girl who was with the man who took Alec from them. But David says tomorrow he is getting a group together to find the pair, and they will bring that man to justice. Alec's daughter, the one who was crying in the opening scene, says that they should kill both the man and the girl. David walks up to her, takes off his glove and hits her with it. Then David helps the girl up, and David says that even though Alec is gone, she will always have a father, and she will show him respect when he is speaking. David sits down as a plate is brought to him. He leads the group in prayer, and they all begin to eat their shares, all shoveling down their rations for the day. The next morning, Ellie is still by Joel's side, and she checks his temperature. The wound already looks slightly better, as Ellie administers more medicine to it. Ellie goes outside and gathers some snow to feed their horse, and as she stands outside the house, she sees birds flying away. Ellie hides and sees David's men searching for them. David warns the group about the dangerous man and says they will bring the girl back with them. James mentions if they bring her back, it's another mouth to feed, and David says if they do not, she will die. But James says maybe that's God's will, which stops David in his tracks. All David has to do is look at James for him to realize that he's gone too far, and the group continues to search. Ellie runs back to the house and down to Joel, begging him to get up, but he is barely awake. Ellie puts a knife in his hands, saying she's going to lead the men away from him, and that if anyone comes downstairs, he has to kill them. But it's hard to tell if he can even comprehend what she is saying, barricading his room from the outside before taking to her horse. She finds the group and shoots at them, but David says he wants her alive as he slyly smiles. As she runs by, James shoots the horse out from under Ellie. Another man tells James to shoot Ellie, but David stops them with a gunshot to the sky. David carries Ellie as he heads back home, telling two men to haul the horse back, and the others to go door to door looking for Joel. One man enters the house Joel is staying in, and Joel wakes up from the footsteps above him. As the man walks down the stairs, he finds the mattress Joel was lying on empty but covered in blood. As the man searches, Joel sneaks up on him and stabs him in the neck, and it seems as though it took all of Joel's remaining strength to do just that, as he attempts to get back up. The scene shifts to Ellie, who David has put in a caged-off section in a kitchen. When she wakes up, David is there waiting. When Ellie asks why she's in a cage, David says because he is afraid of her as she's a dangerous person. David makes sure Ellie knows the others want to kill her as if she should thank him. David asks what her name again, and she replies, "Eat shit." David responds that no one can survive on their own, but he can protect her, yet Ellie says that she's not on her own. David asks how Ellie's friend is doing, and when he sees the uncertainty on her face, he latches onto that, saying that part of her life is ending, and he's offering a beginning. But if Ellie can't trust him, David says that yes, she is alone. David's men continue their search for Joel, and one of the men finds another one of the men knocked out in the snow. When the man goes to investigate, Joel knocks him out with the butt of his gun. The scene cut back inside the house, where Joel has one man tied up, while he beats up another man tied to a chair. Joel pulls out his knife and stabs him in the knee. Joel threatened the man, and he says she's alive and held at Silver Lake, a nearby resort. Joel pulls out his map and tells the man to point with the knife in his mouth where they are, and where is the resort. After the man points to the map, Joel stabs him dead. Then Joel grabs a pipe and beats the other man to death. David brings Ellie a bowl of stew, but Ellie shows David that she found an ear in the cage with her. David says for what it's worth, the bowl he gave her is just deer meat. David says only a few know they eat people and that he would have told her eventually. David says it was a last resort because he had to keep his followers alive and fed. He says Ellie reminds him of himself, smart, loyal, and a natural leader. He says she also has a violent heart. Like him, Ellie sneaks up on him and stabs him. David kicks her and climbs on top her. He says that biting is his favorite part and it seems like he's going to rape her. She fights back and is able to grab a knife and knock him off her. She then goes crazy with adrenaline and stabs him to death. When Ellie gets outside, a man comes behind her and she starts screaming and fighting back until she realizes it's Joel. He holds her and says, "It's okay, baby girl, I got you." The two walk away, well, hobble away, holding each other, and the episode ends here. And that is the end of this movie. If you enjoy this movie and are willing to see more, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel with bell notifications on so you never miss our future videos. And until next time, guys, take care.